This video will be separated in two parts. The first part is going to be general tips that I have, and then the second part is going to be an example reading passage. I'm going to go over the ones that my students get the most incorrect, and hopefully that will be helpful. Hi everyone, my name is Casey and thank you for clicking on this video. Before we get started, I want you to know that this does not apply to the digital SAT. It's just the old SAT, for lack of a better word. I have been tutoring as a paid part-time job for 2 years, so I feel like I've really nailed down what the reading section looks like and how to improve. So that's a little bit of background about me. I'm not trying to brag, I just want you guys to know that I feel a little bit qualified in this aspect, so that's why I'm sharing my tips. Today, I will be sharing practically everything that I tell my students who pay me. Only difference is that I will not be there to help you review individual questions because I'm not your tutor. But that's the difference between me tutoring my students versus what I'm going to share with you today. So I hope you guys understand this is kind of valuable information. The very first thing I say to all my students is to forget everything you have learned in terms of your English class up until this point. So what I mean by that is that in high school English especially, you'll be given a poem or a book or something and you'll be like, let's analyze this together. Go back home and think about the deep meanings about this or something like that. Well, in the SAT reading section, you will get rid of that mindset completely. It's very different. The key thing to nail into your head is that this is a standardized test, and if something is standardized, that means it has to be the same, which means that no student should ever be able to go up to College Board and sue them and say oh, this question has a different answer to it. Meaning every single answer in the SAT reading passage has direct evidence to support it, and it is undeniably, unquestionably the right answer. Now, why am I saying it like this? It's because the real skill that you have to learn has nothing to do with how smart you are and how your ability to think critically or deeply. Not at all. Really, the reading section is kind of silly, but all you have to do is find evidence for the answers. That's the skill that you're trying to build. I think that understanding this skill is kind of hard in the beginning if you are practicing entirely by yourself, without a tutor or without any books and just looking straight at practice tests. So when you first start your SAT reading passage, I would recommend, if you're doing it alone without a tutor, I would recommend something like looking at the SAT Black Book, because the Black Book, which I'll have link in the description below, please click on it if you're interested in buying it. The SAT Black Book, for example, has 4 SAT free passages that you can do on College Board, and then they give you very in-depth explanations. When you read a few of these explanations for how the reading passage should be thought about, then eventually you start getting the hang of it. With more and more practice, you start to understand what I mean by finding evidence. Another thing you could do is look up free resources on YouTube and all over the internet. Someone out there probably has explained even more, even better, or even more specifically what that might look like. But just know that the point is you have to look for evidence. If you do not see almost line by line paraphrasing something that's going to be the answer, then that is not the answer 9 times out of 10. I think when I do the example passage, you will better understand what I'm trying to say, so stay tuned till the end. The second thing I have to say is about how you should read, the actual passage, not the questions yet. So people like to ask me, how should I read it? Do I take notes? Do I read it really slow? Do I read it really fast? Okay, in my opinion, I think this is the most foolproof method. That is what I have learned to do, and that's what I've been teaching my students, and I've been seeing results because of it. However, if something else works better for you, then by all means do what works best for you. In my opinion, I think that you should read well enough to understand the main ideas and well enough to know where to refer back to. As in, for example, you're reading a passage and question 27 asks about a certain topic, okay? You should know roughly, okay, I remember in the passage, I think the 3rd paragraph talks about this. You don't have to know exactly what it is. And especially when you start practicing, I don't want you to jump immediately to what you think is the answer, because when you first start practicing, I honestly don't trust your SAT intuition yet because you just started learning. So I would rather you be much more critical of yourself and go back, flip through the page, flip through that like paragraph and really look for it. Like, okay, in this paragraph, it says this. So which of the following answers line up with this? Or better yet, which of the following answers are wrong and do not relate to this in any way? I'll get to that point in a second. But my point is that try to read it well enough so that you can go back and refer to it, but don't read it so in depth that you are going through every single detail, because not every single detail will be asked about in the questions. Also, that will take up way too much time and way more than you can afford. 3, the next question that people always ask me is, how do I approach the actual question? Well, besides the part I was talking about, like you have to find evidence, besides that bit, you want to go through and eliminate answer choices. Instead of jumping straight to which one I think or I feel is correct, you want to go through and eliminate them. Let me tell you why. It's because in the beginning, right, when you start off at a lower SAT score that isn't your goal score, doesn't mean you're stupid, doesn't mean you're dumb, doesn't mean you're not capable of reading, none of that. However, it does mean that you don't really know how this test works yet, like how it works. So I would not trust your intuition. For example, if you reach a point in your practice where you're in like late 1400s, early 1500s, I would very much trust your intuition, and I would rather you save time by picking the answer you think is correct. However, in the beginning, when you're trying to practice from a lower score, then I want you to go through each answer choice and think, okay, where is there any part of this answer choice that's wrong? Even any bit of it is wrong. If even one bit of it is wrong, then you can get rid of it. If it's irrelevant, you get rid of it. And I literally like write across the answers. You don't have to, but my point is I want you to think to yourself like either it's wrong or it's a maybe. And the reason why I say maybe instead of wrong or right is because, like I said in the beginning, I want you to be more critical of yourself because you don't really know very well how this test works. So be doubtful of what you think is the correct answer, just in case, because that will keep an open mind for other answers, if that makes sense. Like as you progress, what I'm saying can reduce more, but in the beginning, go by wrong or maybe, and then you go narrow down to like 2 maybes, and then you try to see within the 2 maybes which one's more wrong, and usually you'll be able to find evidence along the way for which one is right as well. The next question, number 4, the next question that people ask me a lot is like, how should I time things? I would say in the beginning, I would much rather you focus on getting things correct rather than getting things done quickly. Why? Because timing is something that comes naturally with understanding. You cannot force yourself into doing better time-wise if you still don't get the reading passage. Like fundamentally you don't get it yet and you don't know how it works and you don't really know the right answers, then you just cannot do better in time. Like time is not going to affect anything. Okay, so I would say, let's say you have 2 months till your test. Spend a good month and a half doing things untimed, but really focusing on the things that I was saying just now. Focus on getting it right and focus on reducing the amount of wrong answers you have each time. Focus on how you can perfect the way that you can get to the answer quicker, which will come naturally as you get more and more right. So it's like, I know I'm saying the same things, but it's because it's like a positive feedback loop. But yes, so that's the beginning goal. Now, eventually, when you get to near the end of your practice, then that's when I would focus on timed work. The SAT has 5 reading passages, 65 minutes, which gives you 13 minutes per passage. If you want to be more safe, I would recommend that's when you start practicing so that you can do it in like 11 to 12 minutes, so you have some minutes left over in the end for the ridiculously hard questions that you just cannot figure out for the life of you, which will happen to most people, which is perfectly fine, okay? Within the 11 to 12 minute breakdown, I would spend a good 3 to 4 minutes reading it the way that I was recommending earlier, meaning enough to know where to refer to, but not too much that it's wasting your time. I usually find that 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes is a sweet spot for that. And don't skim it, okay? That will do you no good, okay? So then do that, and then spend the rest of the time on questions. And like I said, if you've been doing a lot of untimed practice tests, you're getting things right, then this part will come much, much, much more naturally to you, okay? 5, the last thing I want to say, if you watched my other SAT video, like the ultimate SAT guide video, then you already know this. If you haven't, go watch it. But the last thing I want to say, and probably the most important thing, is that you have to review your incorrect answers. You cannot simply brute force your way into getting a better score. Like, you could do 25 practice tests and 25 practice reading questions, but if you are not reviewing what you get wrong, you are getting nowhere, my darling. Okay, so what you want to do is, now obviously change it up as you need to, but this is like, if I had to give a step-by-step, this is what I would say when you're reviewing the incorrect answers on your own. As a tutor, what I do is I help my students review the incorrect answers together. I tell them how I would think, but if you don't have a tutor, which is fine, then you wanna go ahead and do what I'm about to say. 1, go figure out why the answer choice that you chose is wrong. Go back into the passage and try to find evidence for why it proves that one that you chose is wrong, or like, even if it doesn't prove it, it like proves that it's irrelevant to the question, okay? So that's 1. If you can't do that, then 2, go figure out which one is the right answer. Now, this is before you, oh, I should have said this earlier. Basically, when you're going through and checking your answers at the end, I would check like a cross and a tick and a cross, but I would not write down the correct answer on the like right side or something. I will wait till later to come back to see which one's the correct answer. Does that make sense? Because I want you to go through one time where you try to figure it out again before you look at what the correct answer is. So as I was saying, step 2, if you can't figure out why the one you got wrong is wrong, then go through and try to see if you can get a good answer, like the correct answer again. Check that answer again. If you're still wrong, which I'm sorry, then step 3, if you still can't, then go through your answer checkbook and see, oh, okay, it's D's the correct answer. Ideally at this point, as I was saying earlier, if you had a book like the Black Book, or if you had like resources available to help explain to you why this answer is the correct answer and why the other ones are wrong, then that's great. If you don't and you're doing it yourself, just requires a bit more work, but essentially you have to go through back into the passage and hunt for the correct answer. You should know that in the beginning of your practice, honestly, I would say that reviewing is going to take much more time than actually like doing the practice test. Meaning, if you spend 65 minutes on the reading section, you can expect yourself to spend 2 hours on it reviewing if you're like getting a bunch wrong and you're not really sure how you're getting it wrong. That's the goal. You really have to review to do better the next time. Would much rather you do like 3 practice tests, but really review those ones than do like 25 brute force, not understanding what you're getting wrong. Does that make sense? So if you follow what I have to say and you do a lot of practice, then I can pretty much guarantee your score is going to go up. Just remember that at the end of the day, this is a standardized test, which means it's pretty repetitive. The type of questions, what you're going to see, where the answer is most likely going to be. So that's something you'll get used to as you do more practice tests. Like I said in my other video, I would try to stay away from non-College Board official SAT practice tests as much as possible and use the other test companies as a last resort, because the way they structure their passages and questions might be slightly different. That might throw you off during your practice time. So try to stick to official stuff. If you run out of that, then you go to the other stuff. Does that make sense? There's a specific type of like questions that people usually get wrong, at least my students get wrong a lot, and I did too, is paired questions, where the first one will be like asking any question about the passage, and the second question right afterwards is which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question. Okay, So for the sake of me explaining it, I'm going to call the first question A and the second question B. Here are the steps that I want you to follow that I think is the most foolproof steps. By all means, like usual, do what you think is best if other means work better for you. But here is what I think is the safest way to go about things. Okay, so first, I would look at question A and I would eliminate the ones that are most obviously wrong. They're like just ridiculous answer choices. You might be able to eliminate down to 2, which is the ideal, or maybe you can't do any of them because you're like so confused. That's fine. But let's try to eliminate ones that you know are most definitely wrongs. Keep the ones that are maybes for question A. For then you will go to question B, and the key here is you want to go and see which of the lines in question B best answer the question A. Now, the reason why I say this is because people have the tendency to look at which of the answers in question B matches the answer in question A. And I want you to avoid doing that because the SAT very specifically does this extremely cheeky thing where they will sneaky thing where they will have paired like answers, maybe like answer choice B is matching answer choice D. However, they're both wrong. They do that on purpose to throw you off. I don't want you to be thrown off by that, which is why I say the key to the second step is to go back and look at which one answers question A, okay? Nothing else you're looking for at this point. And usually that is pretty easy because you remember how earlier I was telling you like the goal for each reading question is you go and find the evidence. However, in these kind of paired questions, they literally give you the evidence line by line from lines 38 to 42, 57 to 63 or something like that, So that part should be pretty easy. And usually like most people, like 9 times out of 10, people are able to come up with the correct answer for that one. And then you want to go back to question A and see which of the 2 maybes that you have left are matching with the answer you chose in B, and that should be your correct answer. That is the most safe and foolproof way that I have come up with that my students use a lot. So that's all I can say, really. I'm going to give you an example. So stay tuned till the next part, even though this video is already kind of long, because I'm pretty sure what I just said was confusing otherwise. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please consider liking, subscribing, notification bell, comments, all that. If you want, please check out the Amazon links down below. Like it's an affiliate link, meaning I get a tiny commission, no extra cost to you for some of the books that I've used myself or I recommend. If you want a tutor and I am still free, feel free to email me and I would be more than happy to reply to you to let you know if I'm still available for tutoring. This only applies to US students for now because currently I'm only tutoring the non-digital SAT, so like the original one. Yes, and good luck, my friends. You got this. I hope you're not cramming, but if you are, then you still got this. Bye.